So welcome back, everyone. And today I'm going to be presenting this material. Why does the hadith proclaim Muhammad as a cross-dresser? And this is quite a famous hadith. I'm sure you all have seen it. And it's a bit of a peculiar one. And there's a reason why I'm not using the word transvestite, which we'll make clear later. I'm just using the more neutral term cross-dresser here. Would you say, just before we go into this, would you say that this hadith is familiar to many Muslims, or is this one of the embarrassing hadiths that few Muslims would have heard of?
No, this is one of the buried hadith that you never hear the sheikh say on TV.
Yeah, I can't imagine it. Oh, he wore a lovely dress there in this hadith. No, I can't imagine him saying it. There's not a good context in which you could come out with this one. So it has been observed that there appears to be a more tolerant attitude to transvestites in Central Asia, for example, in Pakistan. And this is something I've heard over a number of years. And it always was odd for me because I was thinking, well, even in really conservative countries where a lot less is not tolerated, it seems that this seems to be much more tolerated than even in the West. And it's quite a strange one, considering that in many of these countries you have majority Muslim populations. Is this something that you would have noticed yourself, Murad, this idea that...
Yes, I noticed this before, and even as far east, you have in Indonesia or Indonesia,
yeah,
you have a lot of transvestites and cross-dressers, and even people who do a complete transition.
yeah,
They call them katoi, and lots of tourists go just for that. You see, even young boys, they could wear, they could cross-dress at a young age and just dance in front of old people, and this is normal in these places like Pakistan.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting part of the culture, and today's video is really going to look at a possible explanation for where it all came from. And yeah, better not let the cat out of the bag just yet. Now, why would the hadith refer to Muhammad as a cross-dresser? That's the big question. In earlier videos, we saw that the Sunnah was written in Transoceania, which is in Central Asia. And this is going to be key in terms of unraveling this reference to Muhammad cross-dressing. So the idea today is not really to see if the story has got a historical basis in terms of Muhammad in Arabia in the 7th century, but more it's to do with the people who were writing the hadiths in Central Asia using aspects of their own culture, which wasn't Arabian, and that fed into the stories that they were writing. So
you see, if before you continue, if you cross-dress in an Arabic country, most probably you will get killed.
Absolutely, it'd be...
So this is not Arabic by any means.
No, I don't think there was ever a tolerance for it. So it's very odd then for it to appear in the hadith. Now, just to remind you about the idea of the Sunnah being written in Central Asia, you can see here that all of these books were written in various Central Asian countries like Uzbekistan, Iran, and Turkmenistan. Very important names like Bukhari and so on. But not a single one has been written in Arabia. Now, these are various important places in Transoceania, and we've mentioned these before. Of particular interest is Bukhara, which is the location that al-Bukhari came from. Now, as you can see, you have the Caspian Sea there in the center, and there's a region to the east of the Caspian Sea where the people known as the Scythians lived. And they had a religion which would have had an influence in that region. So that's the basic hypothesis that I'm going to present today. And if we think about it, all of these locations where the Sunnah was written was around the Caspian Sea. Let me just quickly move on. Now, if we look at the biblical judgment on cross-dressing, which is really clear, a woman must not wear men's clothing, nor a man wear women's clothing. For the Lord your God detests anyone who does this. Deuteronomy 22:5. Any thoughts on that, Murad, before we go on?
Yes, I want to say that the Quran doesn't have a clear commandment about this, but the Quran is saying to the reader, he is referencing him to the Torah. It's saying that the Torah has light and guidance.
Yeah.
And the Deuteronomy is the Torah. So the Quran is agreeing with the Bible here. It is not with cross-dressing.
Absolutely. So there's obviously a contradiction between the hadith and the Quran
and the
here.
Quran.
Yeah, that's very clear. Now, so the particular hadith, I'm sure there's probably numbers of variations on this, but the one that I'm going to use for an example, it's Al-Bukhari, hadith number 2442, chapter 54, the Book of Gifts and Their Excellence, part 7. So hopefully everyone will be able to find that. It says in the hadith, and I'm just taking out the relevant section for us, Muhammad said to her, "Do not injure me regarding Aisha. The revelation does not come to me when I am in the garment of any woman except Aisha or Aisha. She said, I repent to Allah from injuring you, Messenger of Allah." So you can see here that the idea of him receiving revelation is connected to him wearing this garment. Very strange hadiths, Murad.
Yes, the word in Arabic is thawb. Thawb is, it could be, the thing that you wear after you take a bath. This is the garment.
Like a bath towel or something, or
No, it's not like underwear. It's something that you wear over the clothes, but it's a feminine word, thawb.
Okay, yeah.
You cannot use this for a man. Yes.
Yeah, like kind of a gown that a woman would wear, let's say.
You know what the sumo wrestlers wear? It is something like this.
What did you say? Who wore?
You know the sumo wrestlers of
Oh,
Japan?
right. Yeah.
This is the thawb. This is something that is open, but you tie it. And actually, this also make it more Asian. Just this.
Yeah, straight off, yeah. Right, so now the key thing here, a lot of people interpret it as a kind of a transvestite type thing where Muhammad is getting off on this and there's kind of like a sexual pleasure element to it. But notice that there's a religious connection to it, suggesting that this is part of being a prophet. So in order to receive the revelation, he has to wear this to get inspired. So there must be a reason for this. One reason could be that it's purely the imagination of the writer who's just dreamt up this mad idea. We know that the Arabs didn't do this sort of thing, so it didn't come from Arabia. So there must be some cultural explanation is what I would say. So there's no adequate explanation that has ever been offered for this, except to say that it is weird, and I think both of us would kind of agree it's weird.
Of course, yes.
So, what was the religion of the Scythians? Well, it's simply called Scythism, religion I never heard of until very recently, and stumbled across it accidentally when I was actually looking up an answer to a question that one of our members of the audience had posed in the comment section. I just came across this religion. And so a little bit about them. Here's a collection of drawings of Scythian stelae or rock carvings.
Could you go back to the map? I want to show you something.
Yeah, let me just do that. Oops, gone too far, yeah.
You see to the far right, you also have Scythians. So you see these people, there were a lot of them. You see to the far right.
Oh yes, yeah. So it wasn't just that small region. It would have expanded further out.
Yes, and it's close to India. So you can also have Indian influence here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Thanks, Word. So these are drawings of various rock carvings, and I think, as far as I remember, these were placed in the graves of people who died. And in the right hand of the figurines, they have a horn, which I suppose represented, let's say, wine in paradise and that kind of thing. Now, what little is known of the religion is drawn from the work of the 5th century Greek historian and ethnographer Herodotus. According to Herodotus, the Scythians worshipped a pantheon of 7 gods and goddesses. The names of these did not enter Islam's mythology. So I'm just pointing that out. We're not making a case, or I'm not making a case that this is where Islam got the names of the gods from. However, he mentions that an extra god was worshipped by the royal Scythians. So in other words, as I've mentioned down below, it seemed to be that there was polytheism for the people and one god for the elite. And this is interesting because that similar tension is there even in Arabian culture. You had the elite, which were typically monotheists, and then the masses were typically polytheist. And that created a lot of the drama. No, so this was also a feature of this culture. Now, so we have various gods as I have on front of you there. The key one that I want you to focus on in red, Argampasa, is the equivalent of Aphrodite, which in, I can't remember, I think it might be the Roman religion, the equivalent was Venus. Am I right? I think it was. So
Maybe, yes,
I think Aphrodite was the Greek one, and Venus was the Roman version of that. So
yes, planet of love.
yeah. No, yeah. So Herodotus equates them with Greek gods. So each of these 7. Now he doesn't. In terms of my research, I didn't find the name of the 8th one, and it's not particularly crucial actually for what I'm going to talk about. But just bear in mind that this god or goddess was the equivalent of Aphrodite. Now, if we think about an aphrodisiac, if someone for example, ate oysters as an aphrodisiac, what would that typically mean, Murad? Are you familiar with that term?
No, I don't know that.
All right. So if a man wants to get himself in the mood to make love with his wife, they might eat a food which is arousing. So that would be an aphrodisiac. So something that would arouse.
Food?
It could be food, or it could be anything anything could be an aphrodisiac.
In our culture, it is usually seafood, like shrimps and stuff.
Yeah. So shrimp, oysters, that kind of thing. So the connection there is very important. So we think of Aphrodite connected with love, but more importantly to do with sex, and also to do with fertility. So it has a number of key important things. And this is very primal in many religions, the obsession with fertility, because essentially a society depended on this, being able to reproduce and so on. So prayers were often made to these gods and goddesses, and offerings were made to statues or figurines of these gods and goddesses, okay, including Aphrodite.
This is a strong connection with the Kaaba also.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is what you will say, but the black stone, it's also for fertility, because the way it is done, the outer carving, it's like the female genitalia.
Absolutely. And actually the rock called Aphrodite is actually black as well. You know,
Yes.
so there's a strong connection. Actually, you're very close to where I'm going with this.
Okay.
So if you think about St. John of Damascus that we've referred to recently, he said the following: they are also called Saracens, which is derived from Saras Kenoi, or destitute of Sarah, because of what Agar said to the angel, Sarah hath sent me away destitute. These used to be idolaters and worshipped the morning star and Aphrodite. Now, Venus, as I mentioned this a second ago, is the morning star, and Aphrodite is one and the same goddess. So he's saying that the Saracens, or the Arabs, worshipped this goddess. So we see a connection straight off there. Now, we've seen in one of the chronicles that the Arabs appear to be from the southern shore of the Caspian. Can you just remind us who it was that said that? Was it Fredegar?
Yes, it's the Chronicle of Fredegar. He's Frankish, and it's written in the 660s.
Yeah. So very good source linking that. Okay.
I want to tell you something also about the planet of love and Venus. Fatima, which is the daughter of Muhammad, it's connected with her the name Zahra. Zahra, it could mean a flower, and this is what later became like Rosemary. So it's the same as what got connected with Mary. But it also could mean Al-Zuhra. Al-Zuhra is planet Venus, which is the planet of love. And you see always that Fatima was very kind with her father, and she was called the lady in the Shia traditions. So this is also a connection, the feminine connection.
So this is in the meaning of the name Fatima itself?
No, Zahra, not Fatima. The other name, which is the connected to her, was Zahra.
Oh, okay. No. Right. So in this religion, the Inari were an elite group of hereditary priests. They were believed to have received the gift of prophecy directly from the goddess Argampasa. The Inari used strips cut from the bark of the linden tree to tell the future. The Inari were prophets and diviners. Now, do you remember anything about the Arabs and trees, Murad?
Yes, there is a manuscript that says they used to worship trees.
Okay, so we have a connection here as well with the idea that in this culture, the elite group, basically they treated the trees as gods because these trees provided them with wisdom and prophecy. Perhaps there was chemicals in the bark that made them hallucinate. It's hard to know, or hard to say, but that's a key connection as well.
I think the Buddhists today, they do something similar. They tell the future by taking out a piece of tree. I'm not sure.
Might be, and it would actually fit in terms of the location as well. So
Yes.
this is the key chronicle, the Zucknin Chronicle of 775. So it says, the first king was a man from among them by the name of Muhammad. This man they also called a prophet because he had turned them away from cults of all kinds and taught them that there was one God, maker of creation, and also he'd laid down laws for them because they had been firm adherents of the worship of demons and adoration of idols, and particularly of trees. So that's the reference there to trees.
This is very strong. I think this is a very strong case.
Yeah. Now, I suppose the thing is, people are assuming that he is from Arabia, but if we take this into account with all of the connections with that religion and also references to him being from the southern shore of the Caspian Sea, I think we're beginning to see a different picture. But there's more. So remind ourselves that we were talking about this hadith. The revelation does not come to me when I am in the garment of any woman except Aisha. Now, we saw that in this religion, one way you were a prophet was by eating the bark of that tree, the linden tree. But there is more. The Inari were also noted for dressing themselves in the clothes of women, a custom which Herodotus understands as being reflected in the title Inare, glossing this to mean man, women. So it's a it's a very strong connection.
Yes, this is a killer.
Do you know, it reminds me, I have a young niece. When she was about 2 or 3, she had seen Michael Jackson, and she referred to him as a man woman in her innocence. So it's just like
Yes.
this.
Very good, yes.
Yeah. So I think there's quite a bit of weight to this connection. I think, if we review what we know that the Sunnah was written in the Caspian area. We know that this religion existed there, and we know that from Herodotus, who was writing long before Islam. So it's not that he's not been influenced in any way to make connections, but he points out the connection with the trees and the connection with cross-dressing. And then we have this peculiar story which appears in the hadith, and it contradicts Deuteronomy. It doesn't fit in with the Judeo-Christian religion in any way. In fact, it's completely foreign to it. So I think there's a strong case there.
You see, maybe after listening and reading all these outside sources, maybe he was a guy from this part, from the Caspian, and he went all the way to Jerusalem and came back. When he went to Jerusalem and came back, he told his people that we are the sons of Ishmael and leave these silly things and let's go to Jerusalem. So maybe this was the original message, and then they still, after he died and everything, they attached these ideas to him still.
Even though he'd rejected them in his own lifetime.
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing is there is suggestions in some of the sources that Muhammad was from a well-to-do family. He was from among the elite, so it would fit in with the religion as well. That in that culture, you have the elite that worship one god, and then the commoners worship multiple gods. Do you see the connection there? So even the idea of Muhammad coming back and trying to encourage everyone to be monotheists fits in with the religion itself. It wasn't totally a 180-degree about turn. This was already part of the religion among the elite, let's say. You know what I'm saying?
You see, it only fits in Central Asia because all of Arabia, either Syria or Iraq, they were monotheist. No one was a pagan and worshipped idols. This only happened in this part of the world. So that's a strong case.
Yeah. Well, certainly up in the highly populated places in Syria, there were monotheists, and in the cities. But I think the evidence would suggest that paganism was very strong out in the, as I say, out in the sticks, in the wilds of Arabia. It took a long time, and they would have become Christian eventually. But just judging from the rock inscriptions,
it was not pagan as you think. This is a big problem also. The Muslims say that before Islam they were pagan. They were not pagan. These gods, they were local gods. It is like today if you have the flag of England and you say you worship the flag. No, you don't. This is just a symbol so that when you travel a long way and you see this symbol, you know that this is the god of this area or this is the symbol of this area. They did not worship him and they did not eat him and this silly stuff. This is some silly stuff that the Muslims said about the prior Arabs. The Arabs, they were just monotheists.
Yeah, I'll have to disagree with you on this, on the basis that of the thousands and thousands of rock inscriptions and all the pagan sites that Yehuda Nevo found were still being built right up into the 750s. So it looks like paganism, while it wasn't fully dominant, it was certainly, there was a strong section of the population that were still pagan, but the people in power were definitely monotheists, and history is often written by the monotheists, or the people in power, I mean, which in this case would be monotheists. That's why it appears on one level that the culture was predominantly monotheist, but on the other level, it actually, in terms of numbers, there was still quite a lot of pagans. But the Christianity was making great inroads into different parts of Arabia, and had Islam not happened, I think paganism would have died out probably in the next 100 or 200 years, I would think. But
I disagree with Nevo, just for the fact that I think that there was nothing known as paganism in general. For a simple fact is these pagan symbols, they were also monotheist, but on a different level. So if you have a bull or calf being drawn on the wall, you will say this is paganism. But this might be just a symbol of resembling the people when they went out of Israel. And this is the calf that Moses had damaged or stuff.
yeah.
So the idea of worshipping some beings that never help you, I think this is silly. No one did this before. But this could be another study. This is another thing.
Yeah, we'll probably agree to disagree on this, but of course it all depends on what things we've been studying ourselves. I've gone 360 degrees. I originally thought it was the situation that you're mentioning, based on early 3rd and 4th century histories, but it was only when I looked at the collection of rock inscriptions I realized that there was an awful lot of prayers still to the gods and goddesses of Arabia, even into the 7th century. That's what changed my mind. But
the little disagreement we have will be about the gods and the goddesses themselves.
Yeah,
their names, they could also mean the one God, for a simple reason. I was looking at David Rohl. He is the one who suggests that the Egyptian history is a little too long and it needs to be cut down a little bit. I agree with him. When you do this chronology, you fix it, you will see that Dushara in Petra, this is a reference to the Lord of the Mountains, hence Moses. Aaron. So if Dushara is Aaron, brother of Moses, and then the people when they die, they made the coffins directed to him, then here you are still, yes, you are worshipping a man, but still in the Judeo-Christian milieu. That's what I think. All these gods, they were just Abrahamic.
Okay. No. Okay, so in conclusion, really, considering that the hadiths were created in Transoceania, it is no surprise that elements of Scythism influenced the stories in the hadith. It was part of their conception of prophets that they used cross-dressing and the consumption of tree bark to assist their fortune-telling. It is also interesting that they believed, sorry, I've made a mistake there, believed to have received the gift of prophecy directly from the goddess Argym-Pasa, or Aphrodite. St. John of Damascus tells us that the black stone of the Kaaba was the head of Aphrodite. So that's it. I don't think we have anything else to add to that, but
last thing I will add, there is this chronicle of Tian. This is one of the official Tang dynasties. It's written in the 900s. It says also that the Saracens, they took a part of the tree and they kept it in their palace, in the Saracen palace. So again, another tree
Wow.
connection. And this is after they are Muslims, remember.
Yes. So this element of the Scythian religion continued on because probably it's just such a strong part of their culture that it's going to survive through all the generations.
And you see in the Quran, I'm not sure if this is a good connection or no, but you have that God appeared in a tree. I know this is it has to do with Moses, but they left this in the Quran.
Yes, that's
Since it's a
interesting.
tree, then okay.
Yeah, well, if they associate receiving revelation with eating the bark of a tree, it's easy for them to see God in a tree, if that makes sense.
Yes,
Yeah,
so God is Jesus, no, but God in the tree, yes.
yeah, I think that's an excellent link. Well, on that note, Murad, thank you for being with us again today, and I think it's been a good discussion.
Yes, thank you for having me.